Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In this episode we'll make pain d'épices. This is a variation on the French baguette. Pain meaning bread, épices means wheat stalk. So the bread is meant to look like a stalk of wheat. And this funky effect is achieved by cutting it with scissors. So keep watching to find out all about it. And as always you'll find a full recipe with all the details down in the description box. So let's see what equipment we need. A tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, dough scraper, temperature probe, scissors, and a thick lint-free towel. Now on to the ingredients. We'll need some strong white bread flour, some water, some yeast, salt, and the seeds are optional. I'm using linseeds. Now a regular baguette, or this pain d'épices, is made using a pre-ferment. My kitchen is quite hot, so I'm using cold water. But basically, to make a pre-ferment, you take a portion of the total flour, a portion of the total water, and just a little pinch of yeast. Then you mix it all together and leave it to ferment. This particular pre-ferment is called a poolish, and the main purpose of it is to add flavor and texture to the bread. So mix your ingredients and let them ferment for 10 to 12 hours. And of course, depending on how warm your kitchen is or how cold it is, it may take less or more time. But you want it to double in size for sure. Now once your poolish is ready, make the dough. Get a big bowl, add your water, add the yeast, add the salt, give it a good mix. Next up, we can add the pre-ferment. It should be nice and light, doubled in size, and full of air bubbles. And when you drop it in the water, it should float. When you stir it, it should resist. If it's runny and loose and you can pour it out the jar, then it's over fermented. And then you can start over. But if it's looking good, add your flour and continue. Get your scraper, give the dough a mix in the bowl until you don't see any more dry flour. Once it's all nicely mixed, you can continue on with your hand. I prefer doing this first part in the bowl to avoid making a mess on the table. But once the dough has been formed, tip it out on the table and start kneading it. It is not very wet and sticky, so we'll use a regular kneading method. What I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand. Then using the fingers of my left hand, I fold a piece of dough under the heel of my right hand. Then I turn and repeat. Once you've done this a few times, this motion will become completely fluid and you won't even think about it. All in all, it should not take more than 5 to 7 minutes. And once your dough has become nice and smooth and not too sticky, get it in a bowl, ready for fermentation. But always take the temperature first. 24 to 25 degrees Celsius is just about right. If your dough is warmer, ferment it for less time. If it's cooler, ferment it for longer. Same goes for your kitchen air temperature. But my one is just correct, so I'll cover it up and leave it to proof for 45 minutes. And after the first 45 minutes, you need to give it a fold. Folding will degas the dough, equalize the temperature, and create more layers in the gluten structure, making the dough stronger. To perform a fold, place your dough out on the table, smooth side pointing down, and stretch it out a bit. Then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started and until you have a nice tight ball. Then flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, pinch the bottom together, place it back into the bowl, make sure the smooth side is pointing up. Then cover it up, we'll leave it to proof for another 45 minutes. Now it should have puffed up real nice by now. And after the bulk fermentation, we can divide our dough into 2 pieces. Now normally I would recommend using scales when dividing a dough, but if you're making 2 pieces then it's quite easy to eyeball it. So just use your scraper to cut it right down the middle. And don't worry if one is a little bit bigger than the other one. Now after dividing, we need to pre-shape the dough. You can use a light dusting of flour if you feel that it's a little bit sticky. To pre-shape, place the dough smooth side down, flatten it, then fold the edges over each other, and then fold the top down and the bottom over the top. I hope that made sense. Just watch my hands. You want it to be kind of a blunt cylinder shape basically. And after pre-shaping, we need to rest the dough for 15 minutes so the gluten relaxes and we can do the final shaping. We are trying to achieve a baguette shape here because that's what it is. It's a baguette. The only difference is that before baking, we'll cut it with scissors. So to shape a baguette, dust your table lightly with flour. You don't want too much. Then place your dough smooth side down, flatten it out, fold the top third over the middle, then turn it around, then fold the bottom third over the top. Now watch my hands. I'm using the thumb of my left hand to tuck the dough into itself and the heel of my right hand to seal it shut. We're kind of rolling it into itself and sealing it shut. And then you want to turn it around and repeat the process on the other side. This may feel a little bit tricky in the beginning, but just practice and you'll get there. And once you've sealed it up, brush off the excess flour and roll out your baguette. I like to make them with pointy ends, but it's up to you. Make sure it's at least a foot long. And if you messed up the first one, you got another one to practice on, right? So our bread is ready for the final fermentation. This is where our towel comes in. Make sure you flour it well, you don't want these to stick. In bakeries they use a thick piece of linen called a couche, on which baguettes, ciabattas and other breads are being fermented on. So grab a baguette and place it smooth side down on the floured surface. And just organize it, make sure it's nice and straight. Next, we need to lift the towel up and make a crease which will separate the baguettes from each other. And then just repeat with the next baguette. Make sure there's enough flour, place it smooth side down, and then cover them up. We'll leave them to ferment for 45 more minutes. During final fermentation, preheat your oven to 240 degrees C, no fan. And after the final fermentation, we can see the baguettes are puffed up nicely. Now get your baking sheet with the non-stick paper and carefully place the baguettes on it with the smooth side pointing up. So you need to flip them around again. And then just make sure they're nice and straight. Make sure they have enough space between them. Grab your scissors and we can start shaping. This is the fun part. And it's also quite simple. So to turn these into wheat stalks, grab your scissors, cut right down, but don't cut all the way through. And then fold the pieces of dough, either to the left or to the right. And you can see how they're starting to look like wheat stalks. But if you're not into wheat stalks, all you need to do is slash them with a razor and you'll have a regular baguette. The best use for these is like a tear and share soup roll kind of thing. Now this next part is optional, but I like to sprinkle the cuts with seeds so they stick to them. It just gives them a nice visual effect. And now get them in the oven, bake them for around 20 minutes. And that's your pan de pie. Easy, right? Get them out of the oven and enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in comments. And consider subscribing if you haven't already. I make bread baking videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And it's not only recipes, I also teach principles of baking. So if you are into your bread, stick around. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.